Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Amplify Your Business. On today's show, we're going to be talking about selling a business. And so I have Morgan Wolf, who is an entrepreneur. She had a doggy daycare, which turned into a big, elaborate, any animal daycare, it sounds like, a business, and decided to sell it here actually just before COVID started. And so she has some lessons that she learned along the way that I think you might be very interested in. So welcome to the show, Morgan.
Thank you, Lance. Wonderful to be here. Good to see you again.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about the business then. So what were you guys doing? How did it start? And maybe when did it start? That maybe start at that point first.
Yeah, so actually I was a letter carrier for the post office for Canada Post, and I had that position for about 10 years. And my brother just randomly came over one day and he just said to me, "We should start a dog daycare and we should do it in your house and you should do the work and then pay me half." And somehow that was our agreement. So yeah, it actually just started off in my living room with a few animals here and there, some Kijiji ads. We were both still working full time at our positions and then just switching off here and there for our homes. We ended up getting boarding clients, and we were able to retain a lot of our clients just due to the way that we were doing business. So there was always someone in the home setting, and literally the dog slept with me in bed at night. So it was just the creature comforts of home for everybody. And people felt really safe and secure leaving their animals here, which was fantastic. I tried to take that feel to an industrial area, and that's how it all began. Boom.
Yeah, really interesting. So, I mean, at the start, then it was a side hustle out of your own home. You literally brought your work to home into your bed, which is pretty funny. And I'm sure there has to be some sort of joke in there in terms of the letter carrier and the dogs and the dog daycare and stuff. But
I'm sure there is somewhere. I just haven't quite nailed the punchline, but I'll leave that up to you.
Okay, so then you expand out of the home and into an industrial setting. So you, I imagine, rented a bay or something in some sort of building, and then set things for the daycare there.
Yeah, so basically it was 2012, and in 2013 we moved into our location, and we had one small bay of a plumbing shop. And I felt bad for the plumbers because the plumbers were still there. And of course, I don't know if you've ever been inside a dog daycare, but it's usually not the quietest place. So about a year in, we started to get a little bit more successful. And each year we ended up expanding to the point where we literally just kicked the plumbers out of the building and took over. So they moved next door. It was great. Then we didn't have to worry about the noise. And that's when we were able to start introducing other animals. We wanted to expand. So we started bringing cats on board. We also started bringing on exotics. And, with the requests that we were getting, we just modified our business plan to make sure that we could meet everybody's requests. And so it definitely mutated from a dog daycare to an animal care facility. We had grooming, obedience, lessons, training, staff on site 24/7. And it's it wasn't just, let's just sit in the lazy boy and pick up our favorite puppy. I mean, you had to work. This was 24 hours of having animals in every part of the building. So lots of work, lots of fun, but lots of work.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the pivoting that you were doing. You were adapting the business plan based off of what the market conditions were, what the opportunities were. And I mean, that is such an important trait for all entrepreneurs to have. And so this is one of the things that we're wrapping up the 2020 year right now. This is being filmed in December. And so a lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs are going to be doing some business planning in January, and we're still in this COVID uncertainty. And so one of the things that I really want to stress to business owners and entrepreneurs is just that you have to be super flexible, especially now more than any time. And so just like Morgan, let the market dictate to you what you need to do in terms of adapting that business. Now, one of the things that I would love to hear about is what is the most unusual pet then that you guys over the years looked after that you provided some care for?
Well, we definitely had a bearded dragon. That was fun. That was a little bit of research to do before we could go ahead and say yes. We had lovebirds. We had fish, which it was a little odd because I thought fish would be okay at home, but this owner was very attached to their fish, so that's fine. And we had a Sphinx cat named Frank Sinatra. And it wasn't even necessarily the weird pets. I would say that you met a lot of different owners, and then you met a lot of different personalities. I had one staff who could not get out of the rabbit room to save her life because the rabbit just had a vendetta against her. And rather than going to help, I watched on the security camera and laughed a little bit, but that's okay.
The rabbits trapped the employee and
the rabbit was very upset at the staff for cleaning the room. And it looked as if I was watching the video and fast forward of the staff member trying to protect herself with a broom from a rabbit, but it was regular speeds. It was a laugh. I did go help, but it was a laugh. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it's really funny because I grew up on a farm in northern Alberta, and my mom loved to have all these exotic kind of animals around the farm and stuff. And so we didn't have any bearded dragons or anything like that, but we definitely had rabbits and all the typical farm animals and different variations of different types of farm animals, some miniatures and so on. And so it's funny, you had a rabid rabbit, and we had a goose. This goose, he was crazy. And so this our neighbor had just dropped him off at our yard because he was done with this goose. It was a pretty old goose, and he was just cantankerous. And so you couldn't get him to stay in any enclosed area. He would just lose his mind. And so we let him kind of wander around. But he was more vicious than the dogs were. Like, he was a guard goose. Anybody who drove into the yard, he'd be right there at their door, and he wouldn't let them out of their vehicle. And he would always be nipping at people and stuff. Like, he was just mean.
Yeah, it's the smaller animals that you don't think, and they've got a little attitude.
Yeah,
bless their little hearts, but they have a little attitude. And I was this close to getting a pig, but she canceled. So that was
okay. So then you modified your business plan. You've got all these exotics and all these different types of animals there. You expanded the business. Things are trucking along. And so then at some point you decide to sell. And so walk us through that decision first, I guess, and then we'll get into the mechanics of how that worked.
Yeah, I had contemplated it. I remember after one Christmas. Christmas at a boarding facility is exhausting, especially 24-hour boarding facility. So summer and Christmas were exhausting. And I think I was suffering from something similar to almost like a caregiver's fatigue. So you have just put so much into yourself. And because this was a little bit different than a normal industrial business, this was an animal facility. And so, yes, you deal with injuries, you deal with death, you deal with sickness, you deal with people moving, which, the animal's fine, but you never see them again. And just like you would build relationships with your clients, you're building relationships with these animals. So it does wear on you. Their health and well-being. For example, if you were to take care of an animal that perhaps wasn't being taken care of in the best regards, it tugs on your heartstrings. And so it had just gotten to the point, I think, where I was emotionally exhausted from seeing some of the things that I had seen and experiencing some of the things that I experienced. And I had realized that I think most entrepreneurs will side with me in saying, no one's going to do better than you yourself. And it's very hard to let go of this project, of this baby that you've created, to put into the hands of someone else running it while you're still connected. For me, it had to be 100% in or 100% out. And I think that's what helped me make my decision to move forward.
Okay. And so you make a decision to sell the business. And so then do you just put an ad in Kijiji, or do you get a broker? How do you decide, or how do you basically market a business for sale?
Yeah, it was tough. I didn't want to scare anyone away because there's always the chance that the business may not sell. So I didn't want to frighten any clients. I didn't want them to experience any uneasiness during the transition period. So it was all very hush hush. And that brought its own struggles because why are people coming to the daycare, Morgan? Oh, they're my friends or investors and such. So yeah, it did have to be quiet. A big for sale sign out front was not going to do well for any type of business because again, you relate back to these are people's children that they're bringing to, and a big for sale sign out front isn't going to give them the trust and security that they need. So I did have to do it.
That's a great point. Like I would never even have thought of that, but you're bang on, right? Because that would potentially erode the confidence that your clientele has that you're going to be around tomorrow or the next week or the whatever, right? And so, yeah, that's a very important point in this the process of selling a business like that, where you have those people coming and going, and you don't want to lose that confidence. Yeah.
Exactly. And you see them first thing in the morning and first thing at night, and you're one of the first faces they see. So you have a relationship with them. You definitely do. And I didn't want that to be jeopardized in a possible sale.
Yeah. So then how do you sell it? Like, how do you market it? Then how do you get buyers interested if you can't really be advertising publicly there on the site?
So luckily, the site that I partnered with, it was a little bit more secure. Once you were speaking to people, you could go from there. If you wanted to send non-disclosures, if you wanted to send confidentiality agreements, then it was up to you once you had connected with a potential buyer. Again, lots of things could be done, email, phone, lots of things that didn't affect the business. But of course comes the day when they're going to want to see the facility. And so that's where you have to get a little bit more inventive again, if you're choosing to be a little bit more confidential. So it was a little bit more of a headache.
Was it a brokerage site then, that website or something like that?
No, honestly, it wasn't a brokerage site at all. There was a fee that you had to pay just to list the business. So perhaps it could fall into that, but I didn't receive any assistance. It was just basically a place for me to put my name and contact info and have other places contact me.
Okay. Gotcha. And so then you have people coming through, you now have to figure out, okay, what am I selling this? Or maybe you're figuring that out beforehand, I guess. What kind of value can I place on the business? And I think there's a lot of small business owners who really struggle with this, because oftentimes the value in the business is the relationship that the owner has with the customers. And so if the owner is no longer there, sometimes the business value is questionable. So in your case, you obviously had lots of personal relationships with those clients. You built up that reputation. If you exit the business, how many people are going to leave how many clients are going to leave, basically, right? So how was it that you came up with a valuation? Was that something where you had an appraiser come in, or did you use some multiple of your sales or EBITDA or something like that? How did you guys figure that out?
Well, there's about 50 equations on Google to figure out the equation of your the value of your business. And then of course there's your own personal, this is worth clearly this much money. I mean, I've worked at it every day and I've put this much money into it, and it pays for this. So I don't think there's ever a right answer. The value of the business is the value that the seller and the buyer agree on. And you can put your hard assets in there and you can count them up as much as you want. But if someone's not going to give that to you, it's very close to like selling a house. The project value, the property value is there. There's wood, there's nails, there's insulation. Sure, those all have a value, but are they valuable to someone else? So I had quite a few prices and just basically trying to compare, looking at my gross income, looking at my expenses, and trying to figure out different formulas to make this an attractive yet successful sale.
Yeah.
And that formula, I don't know if it's been invented yet. If it is, let me know. But it was tough. Yeah. So there was a lot of negotiating. I settled on a price that probably was too low for me and too high for the buyer. And that's usually the right price.
Yeah.
So,
if neither one of you are completely related with the transaction. Yeah.
That's right. I actually had to sell the business twice.
Oh, okay.
And Yeah. So I sold it. I sold it once. I had let all the clients know. I'd let all the staff know. I'd had everything in place, and I had actually physically left the building to where the point where the new owner was taking money, and he walked out.
Just left it?
Just left. He was trying to negotiate the purchase price a week into the sale and actually refused to relinquish funds. So I had to go back in. And after all that work that I just told you of trying to keep it hush hush, trying to keep the trust, trying to keep the value, I was basically exposed, and I had to go back in, start from scratch, rebuild the value, and then try to sell it again, which took me a whole other year.
Another year. Wow.
Yeah.
Stressful there. So, okay, lessons learned there. So what can we share with the audience? So obviously the deal was not completely closed when you handed over the keys, then it must not have been there.
Yeah, and that was the funny part, because at that point I did realize that Google can only take you so far. You probably start to need to bring in some professionals, and which I did. But you know what? It was just a funny turn of events. It seemed like the deal was done and we were just waiting for this to happen, and everything was flowing nicely. The lease was transferred over, the employees were transferred over, everything had seemed to go through seamlessly, and then all of a sudden, change of a mind. Lessons learned. Lessons learned indeed.
Yeah, and so it sounds like the ink was not really dry yet on the agreements and stuff.
Yeah, the ink, I guess, was just a touch wet.
Yeah, and this is the thing as well. I mean, obviously, when in any of these kind of transactions, even if you get the contracts and all your I's dotted and T's crossed and everything is looking good, at the end of the day, if the person refuses to release the funds and the installments or however you have that worked out, you're faced with, legally you can chase after them, you can sue them and so on, but sometimes that isn't worth it either. And so a lot of people who think that the deal is done, it's never really done until you get that money, right? And that's really the end of the day. So
yeah, exactly. And it had to go in between of being a cooperative. I didn't want to be a harsh seller. I wanted to be a cooperative seller. And then unfortunately, it forced me to revert with the second sale to be a very harsh seller. And parts of me that I naturally wanted to be kind and compassionate towards people, I would have to be a little bit more firm, because, fool me once, the rest of it.
Exactly. And I think that's again, a really important lesson, because when I have that tendency as well, where if you're getting along really good with somebody, right? And I've done this in partnerships in which everything's going really well and you come into it with the right intentions, but then things start to go a little bit sideways, and you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too forceful with some of that stuff, because there's a relationship that's there, right? These are people. And so the tendency that I have is to be a little on the, maybe on the softer side and not be quite as, corporate. So then that has bitten me in the butt, I know for sure. And it's just it's difficult because it's not my nature. And I think there's a lot of people there that would struggle with a similar thing too. So that's an interesting lesson there, is really in those situations, you really do probably have to park the kindness at the door and put on the business hat and just really treat it like a transaction in those moments, but still do it in such a way that you can maintain that relationship so that transfer can go smoothly and everybody's feeling okay at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Nailed it right on the head there.
Yeah. Wow. So you sold it once, and then you come back in, rebuild it for a year, put it back on the market, and then you sell it again. Then at that point, now that one went smooth, or was there any challenges that came up then through that process?
The actual sale part went smooth. I had learned, I had taken my lessons, and I had learned, and I had made sure that every step was accounted for, every single step. And every time that I had reached perhaps a little bit of resistance from the buyer, I just simply explained exactly what I had been through, exactly why I was being the way that I was being. And perhaps if he had a suggestion, I would be open to listening. but I wasn't going to let anybody do what they had done to me again. So yes, I become very, very stern, but it went through the way that it was supposed to go through. Moved the possession date once or twice. That was the only hiccup. Thank goodness.
Yeah, those are fairly common, I think. And so was there any requirement for you to stay in the business through a transition period, which oftentimes happens? Was that a requirement for you at all?
Not a requirement. It was an offer, and it was something that I think we both saw value in. A few moments ago, I remember you were speaking about the value of the business, and I was actually surprised of how many people devalued the business after my departure. You know, potential buyers were saying, well, if you're not going to stay on, why would we buy this? And to which my answer was, why would I stay if I'm not going to own it and work for someone else? That would be silly. So yeah, it was a big thing to have someone on during that transition process. I think new buyers think that they're going to need the previous owner for less time. And then when you take the training wheels off, they regret that they only wish you had stayed for a week. But you've got to learn sometime. I mean, it's trial and error, and it's a new business. It's just like anything. It's a new job, trial and error. Put a smile on your face and do your best.
Yeah, for sure. So in that that transaction and the transfer at that point, was there, I'm curious about, on the personal side, was there any regrets? Were there any second thoughts, some doubts as you're kind of exiting out, which maybe happened on the first one more so than the second one, because I'd imagine by the second time you're kind of done. But yeah, I'm just curious about that, because I know, like for myself, my business is kind of my baby, right? And so it's something that I've grown and something that I feel that kind of defines a bit of me, right? And so it would be really difficult to let go. I'm just curious if there was that, and if there was, like, after you were done, you kind of go into those moments of depression almost, or regret. How did
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Even when the sale was pending, I stopped and thought, do I really want to do this? Is this right? Do I realize what I'm giving up?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had to have a lot of self-talks and just basically weigh the pros and the cons, look at my life, where I want to go, what I would like to do. And am I able to do these things within this position right now? I think the business had reached not a stagnant point, but physically we were unable to grow more, which frustrated me. I like things to grow and progress. And so it was either going to be, add a new building somehow or find a second location. And a second location put me in the same position where I was going to be torn between two places. And I think most entrepreneurs are very much glued to their business. Yeah, there are babies. There are little babies. And it hurts sometimes to go past and see that it's not my baby anymore. It's someone else's baby. It was the right choice for me. Excuse me. It was the right choice for me, though. It brought a bunch of emotions with it. But it was the right choice for me and my lifestyle at the time. And it gives me a chance to take everything that I've experienced and put it into a new creation, whether it's again with animals or again with a different type of business. This was such good education for me. The inception, the building, even the sale of it. I have learned so many lessons, and to do it so much by yourself, they're priceless. You can't learn this anywhere else. You have to really go through it. And we're all entrepreneurs at heart. I think everyone who was an entrepreneur is going to remain an entrepreneur. It's very hard to go and work again for someone because you have that personality trait. So I'm excited to see what the next one will be. I have always had a few little ideas. Had to rope them around the COVID thing, of course, and maybe wait till it blows over. But lots of emotions, good and bad.
Yeah. So now you mentioned all those lessons that were priceless, and you kind of have to go through it in order to really understand it or to learn those lessons. Is there anything that you would like to leave with the audience in terms of things that you wish you would have known when you first started down that road of selling your business, that are easy enough to kind of communicate in this kind of a platform at this point?
Well, every business owner needs to learn to trust their gut in every decision. My goodness, when you don't listen to it, I think we all know what happens. So, but simple lessons would be really just knowing your business, knowing your numbers, being able to answer these financial questions and understanding them. Don't, not just passing your books off to an accountant and then putting them back in your filing drawer and never having to worry about them again. The more you can understand about your business, which sounds silly because you've created it, so you should know it inside and out. The financials led me astray a little bit. I wasn't quite understanding everything until, of course, the second sale came about, where I could look at them as an educated person rather than just someone looking at some spreadsheets. Know your competition. I mean, know what else is out there. Is anyone else selling? Are you priced right out of the market? Simple little things. When you created your business, you had a business plan. So if you're looking to sell your business, have a sell plan, have a sale plan, even if it's just some notes that you've jotted down. Those who plan to fail to plan, and all that fun stuff. It's true. It's very true.
Yeah. I love that. Having a sale plan is so important. You have to approach it strategically. And I know that this is a challenge for businesses or business owners who are in the middle of their business at the same time. It's hard to do the planning, whether you're planning for growth or planning to survive or planning to sell. But anytime that you can apply some thought into it and build some strategy around it, and find out where those gaps are in terms of what you maybe are missing in expertise, and then try to bring that in and reach out to other people who have gone before you, basically, who have sold a business that's similar, or even one that isn't similar, but one that is, a similar scale, maybe not the same kind of market, but a similar scale. Those are going to be great people to tap into. And I know as an entrepreneur that other entrepreneurs are always very willing and open to share, their lessons and their ideas and to give you some free advice. So definitely you can reach out to that, or there's people that you can hire too. So I love that. You have to really focus on the planning. So that's a really great takeaway. So Morgan, thank you so much for sharing this story with us. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace right now. There's probably going to be some people who are looking for an exit strategy and need to think about what it is that they're going to do, how they're going to value their company, and then what some of those processes are. So I'm sure what you've shared with them today is going to help them get started anyway.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for tuning in for another episode of Amplify Your Business. If you are interested in watching some of the past episodes, then head over to amplimedia.com/amplify. And if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner and you have a story that you want to share, definitely same URL. So amplimedia.com/amplify. You'll see a little button up in the upper right corner in which you can click on and apply to be a guest on our show. So again, Morgan, thank you so much. And everybody take care and stay healthy.